Steven, all this social distancing has given me some time to think.
Uh-oh. Are you ending our video relationship?
Well, we'll see how this video plays out. What I've been starting to think is that there are too many player cards in Arkham Horror, the card game. Okay. Muted reaction so far.
I see you like giggling maniacally like Thanos as you say that.
But seriously, the real problem is that the box of cards that I keep my player cards in and generally bring with me when I plan to play Arkham so that all of my level up options are available and things is getting too full. And I could either get a larger box or carry around less cards. I think that the direction I'm going to try to go is retiring some of the cards that are so bad or make so little sense with any current investigators that I'm just never going to use them. I thought it would make a good little talk to have during QuarantineCon.
Yeah. That's I think Brian Sandberg's idea. I posted it on the Arkham Facebook group, and it's like a great way for us all to, keep occupied during the real life, mythos that we're all living in.
Right. Yeah, it's scary out there. And in all this time at home that you have maybe alone, maybe with just one or two other people that you'll see every day, you could go a little insane. So fittingly, Brian suggested this awesome idea to bring the Arkham community together, particularly online, since we obviously aren't meeting up in person very much, with a series of challenges that you can play solo, special ultimatums that are even cleverly tied into the pandemic theme of the real world, and also encouraging content creators to contribute in any way they want to. So yeah, I thought that this would be a great time to talk about how much I hate Arkham. Not how much I hate Arkham, how much I just hate these 13 cards.
All right.
To start. So actually, if you haven't heard of QuarantineCon 2020, Brian's blog is Right of Seeking, and we will link to that in the description below. He has kind of his vision for it as well as his first two challenges, which is super awesome. Also, I know Steven and I will be working from home and probably more than ever happy to play games on Tabletop Simulator, chat, any of that. So hit us up either in the Optimal Play Discord, the link is always in the description, or on other Arkham Discords. We hang out there, and hit us up if you want a game or just want to talk. I think we'd be happy to.
Yeah, definitely.
So with that, I have here the Guardian, Seeker, and Neutral cards, actually, that I am planning on retiring, and I'm basically challenging you to talk me out of it. I don't anticipate you succeeding, but if you see the upside to any of these cards, I am all ears.
All
right, so here we go. We're starting with our favorite Guardian weapon, Blackjack. It's a level 0 1-cost asset. It's an item, a weapon, and is melee, and it takes up a hand slot. It says, as an action fight, you gain plus an entire 1 combat for this attack. If you perform this attack against an enemy engaged with another investigator and you fail, you deal no damage. And that would be damage to the investigator since you swung at the enemy and hit them in the head instead. I don't really think that your friend's well-being in Arkham is worth basically holding a pillow on a stick as a weapon.
So I would do the joke where I cough and I say not 2 damage, but I don't want to cough right now because you'll run out of the room. But that's really what's going on here. It's not 2 damage.
You're right. Yeah, you really look for the main reason to play weapons at all is to get that 2 damage or more per action efficiency, which is what lets you kill almost anything in one turn before it attacks you in the enemy phase. This does just nothing to help with that. And the +1 combat is not even enough to make it that much more likely that you hit at all.
Yeah.
No, I don't think I've ever even given this a shot. To be honest, I don't think I've ever put it in a deck, but I certainly am not going to start now with all the weapon options we have.
You're a guardian. You're good at hitting things. Why are you planning to fail?
You're supposed to be playing the other side of this argument.
This is not the one that I will go out on a limb for.
Oh, so we started with the showstopper. There is no defensive Blackjack?
I will carefully select which ones I defend.
Okay. All right, well then Blackjack retired.
Boo.
Moving on. So we've gone from a level 0 card to now a level 5 Guardian card. Monster Slayer. It's a 1-cost event, spirit traded. It says fight. It's probably a common theme for these Guardian cards. A lot of them are for fighting. If this attack succeeds against a non-elite enemy, defeat that enemy. Sounds great when you read it, right? Problem is, it is a fight action in itself, so it doesn't combine with the benefits you might get from the weapon. So you can't combine this with the +1 combat from Blackjack.
Yeah.
Right? And generally, and defeating an enemy is like really only, so non-elite enemies, most of them have 4 or less health. So if you contrast this with just using a weapon that's going to do 2 damage, this is like maybe a +2 damage if you hit, and it doesn't help you with that. And then on top of that, level 5 experience to get 1 copy of this in your deck, and it costs a resource. No, I'm never going to spend 5 experience on this. Are you?
No, I don't think so. I think if it said like automatically defeat a non-elite enemy, I would consider it. I think that's about the power level I'm looking for in a level 5 Guardian card. Because I mean, Guardians, there are level up things let you do like mass destruction. You know, things like a flamethrower, which can do I think 16 damage. In total.
You compare this to the other level. I think flamethrowers, is that even level 4?
It's level 4, and it does a total of 16 damage. So it'll kill multiple enemies. You know. Or lightning gun can do 9 damage and gives you a big combat boost. So
like maybe this shouldn't be level 0, but I don't think I'd spend more than 1 on this. And even then, it would not be that strong a card. Like you'd have to plan on combining it essentially with skill cards to get your.
I think it would be a pretty good level 1 card, but yeah, it's not 5. I'll agree.
Okay, so we're on the same page more or less so far?
Yeah, no, I think I'm just going to pick like 1 of these cards to defend.
Okay.
You did a pretty good job of picking some crappy cards.
Yeah.
But, you know, there's at least 1 that I can build a deck around.
Okay. Is it Mano a Mano?
This card, no. I have a story for this card. You can read it.
All right. It's a free, no resources, free event that's level 1. That is spirit and bold traded, but as I think all bold cards are, it's play only as your first action, and it deals 1 damage to an enemy engaged with you. This action does not provoke attacks of opportunity. Well, that's generous.
So I put this card in one of my decks thinking that it was a fast action, because I thought surely an XP card that only does 1 damage out of Guardian, who are great at doing damage, that must be a fast action, right? Like, the average Guardian action does, like, 2 damage. So, like, why would you spend an action to do 1 damage? And when I realized that it was not fast, I was so mad at this card that I would never consider playing it.
No, and also, play only as your first action. So, like, this is, in a way, comparable to Coup de Grace for Rogues, which I think has a resource cost on it of maybe 1 or so. And I think you have to play that as your last action, but that card is designed to finish off an enemy when you know that 1 damage is all that you need. In this case, it has to be your first damage, so you don't even know whether you are going to be in a situation where this damage means you kill it by the time your turn is over. It also means that you have either just drawn the enemy, making it a really niche card timing-wise, or you were engaged with it and got hit by it. And in general, like, yes, Guardians take some hits, but you don't plan around letting enemies stick around through the enemy phase, right? Engaged with you. Just no redeeming value. You know, even its art, like, I guess the art is fine. I don't mean to say that it is a bad piece of art, but what does a boxing match have to do with anything that you do in this game? Or
well, you do fight other people, I guess, is the closest thing.
I guess.
I don't believe there are any boxing investigators, but that would be a very Arkham kind of character, you know, like a troubled boxer.
You're right, actually, and we know there's some new investigators around the corner that have started to get previewed, so I would love to see one, and then maybe they'll design an investigator that this is just the perfect card for, and they'll be the boxer.
And I actually don't know if the art is fine, because he has this, like, back crease, which, like, makes sense when your arc is batched, but then it goes up through his neck, which, like, your back crease doesn't normally go all the way up your neck, so it's not great art.
You're right. They have they're pretty just like gray too. Something's up with them.
All right.
I don't know
So
what it
don't
is.
play this card because of the art.
Yes. Other than that, good card, right?
Yeah.
Blood Eclipse. as I was going through, I picked out mostly cards that were from the first couple cycles. This one's from the Forgotten Age, which puts it one of the more recent of the cards that I am planning to retire. This is a 1-cost event that's level 3. It's a spell, so like that's exciting. Guardians don't get a lot of spells, and it's spirit traded. As an additional cost to play it, take up to 3 damage. Like that causes some pause right there. And then fight. This attack uses willpower instead of combat. You get +1 willpower and deal +1 damage for this attack for each damage taken as part of the card's cost. Yeah. So if you elect, you could take 0 damage, but then all that this does is convert your attack to willpower, which if you can take level 3 Guardian cards, you don't have any interest in doing.
I mean, Carolyn, maybe.
Maybe. I guess. Yeah, she is maybe the only use case for this card.
Yeah, but even Carolyn, like 3 XP for such a niche effect, like 3 XP is a lot. I do think if this was a 0 or 1 XP card, like Carolyn would totally consider it. If you're running like double painkillers to convert that damage to horror.
Yeah, I was gonna say it needs another piece of that puzzle, because doesn't she only have 5 or maybe 6 health?
Yeah, so you would have to combo with painkillers, and I think just 3 XP is a little too much to ask.
Yeah, I hope that we get more non-mystic spells and kind of see how it looks when other classes dabble in like the mystic arts. We've seen a few, and this is just not a winner.
But it is definitely the coolest art we've seen so far. So this has more redeeming value than the previous 3 cards.
It is extremely cool art as this guy bleeds himself and that blood forms into like some sort of sword.
Yeah.
That is pretty cool. I'll give it that. Play this before Mano a Mano. For that reason, that's pretty cool. And do you think that's supposed to be Silas? He's wearing kind of a shredded up white shirt and has dark
if
hair.
so, that would be weird because Silas can't play this.
Yeah, that's
Calvin
true.
is a survivor that could play this. Yeah.
Okay. Well, the last Guardian card on my list is Intrepid. It's a level 0. We're back to level 0. Guardian skill with a willpower icon. It's an 8, and it says, if the skill test is successful, add Intrepid to your play area as an asset with the trait, with the text. You get +1 intellect, +1 combat, +1 agility, and then forced at the end of the round to discard it from play. Why?
So this is actually the card that I chose to defend from the Guardians.
Oh, okay.
The reason is actually a very recent investigator. The problem with this card is that, like, if you do it on your first action, it only provides you a boost for the next 2. So it's only good if, like, you are able to succeed on a Mythos phase card.
Yeah.
But, like, how many Guardians are that great at, like, succeeding against Mythos checks? And it just didn't seem consistent enough. There's recently Tony Morgan, who can take this card and then have, like, 17 actions because he's a rogue, and he has a special way to reduce actions with bounties. So I actually think in Tony, potentially, you still have to pass the Mythos check, which I guess is like probably the toughest part. But at least he would have like tons of actions to use that +1, especially fight with.
Do you know off the top of your head how Tony's willpower is?
It's not great. So it's like it's still kind of an edge case. You probably have to take the initiative and Intrepid.
Yeah, because that's the thing is this only gives you 1 willpower icon, and you have to pass that test.
Yeah.
So if it's a treachery, if he has, again, I'm just sitting here guessing. Unfortunately, I don't know his willpower, but if it's 2 and you're running into a treachery that is test willpower 4, like this doesn't get you there.
So it is kind of a combo, but like take the initiative is already a good card. So you could play this and take the initiative, and when you get a will treachery, you commit both. Now you have, a very respectable will, and you probably succeed. And then you have just tons of actions, assuming you have Leo DeLuca, you have bounties, you might have quick thinking to really beat up at people at like a base 6 fight. Or maybe you could even succeed in investigating that turn too.
Yeah, that's interesting. I just still... Anytime, and I'm not a huge fan of, what is the card that heals you in Second Wind that heals you more if you do a treachery? The cards that the timing around playing them revolves around what the encounter deck happens to give
Yeah.
you. Like, I just find them more trouble than they're worth. Like, and they just disappoint you more.
Yeah, no, you're
more often
totally
than
right.
not.
Like, you don't want to put too many edge case cards in your deck. I'll defend this more than the other Guardian cards just because it does have this like one cool edge case where if you can pull off this combo, you could have a really cool turn. But yes, there are perfectly good reasons to not include edge case cards in your deck. Agree with that.
And I thought with this one you would actually bring it back around to Carolyn because she could have like Wither or something. Have a low level spell that she is doing a willpower test on her first action. But you're right that then only two more actions left. Like, is not really. That's like best case scenario. This gave you the equivalent of 3 icons, right? Plus 1.
Which I'd rather just play Steadfast. In then,
right.
So.
Yeah. All right. Well, so Seeker is like arguably the best class, but it's still got some stinkers.
Yep.
Starting in the core set with medical texts.
Mm-hmm.
It's a 2-cost asset. It's an item and a tome. As an action, it says, choose an investigator at your location and test Intellect 2. If you succeed, heal 1 damage from that investigator. I would be okay with this card, maybe. It still wouldn't be great, but I'd be okay with it if it stopped there.
Yeah.
Then it goes on to say, if you fail, deal 1 damage to that investigator.
Don't fail.
That is all well and good, but have you played Arkham Horror the card game? It doesn't always go your way. So I like the flavor of this card.
Mm-hmm.
I like the idea that like if you fail your intellect test, like you are so bad at healing the person, you gave them such bad advice or applied that bandage so poorly or whatever it was that you made matters worse. In reality, though, if you're using your actions to heal a person, literally the last consequence you want to risk is doing even more damage to them. To where even this is also takes up a hand slot and is not very action efficient, but just the fact that the time that you want it is also the time that it just risks screwing you over the most. Like, no, you're never gonna put this on the table. Do you have?
I mean, you played this like as a one-oven Daisy back in the day, but it's true. You don't really play it anymore.
And it's not the only core set card that like maybe saw the table in 2016, not so much in 2020. Okay then. From the Dunwich cycle, Expose Weakness. There were a couple different leveled versions of this. I only brought along the level 1, but they might all be not long for my card box. It is a level 1 0 cost event that says it's an insight trait. Fast. Play during any player window. Choose an enemy at your location. Test Intellect X, where X is that enemy's fight value. For each point you succeed by, reduce that enemy's fight value by 1 for the next attack performed against it this phase. So it sets up an attack to be more likely to hit. It doesn't add any damage to that attack. Mm-hmm. And if they are a tough enemy to hit in the first place, this becomes hard to, like, the tougher an enemy is to hit, the less this card is going to reduce it.
Yeah.
I'm having trouble articulating why that's like...
No, it's yeah. So like, let's say that you are, say 5 intellect, which is pretty good for a seeker, remember that like Magnifying Glass does not help you with this. So that requires you to either be Daisy or Mandy or to have a Milan out. You're testing against a 3 fight monster, which is not particularly high. And you draw -1, you've spent an entire card slot and on XP on just reducing its fight value by 1. Like, that's not very good. And that's like that's not a bad scenario that you drew a -1 there.
Yeah.
So yeah, if it also like you increase the amount of damage you did, maybe then you would consider it, and you would then it would be worth throwing in a perception to make sure that you really ace this test. But like, without increasing the damage, are you really going to like build up this big combo just to make the next hit easier?
Yeah, not really. And I think there's just better, obviously it's from a different class, but there are different cards that just outclass this one, like Momentum, right? That one takes, it actually does basically exactly what this does. It takes whatever you succeed by and applies it to the next test, making it that much easier. But it does it on anything, right? Yeah. It's a wild icon, so it can be any type of test, and it can be used to investigate or whatever. So just dramatically more flexible than this. Same resource cost because that's a skill card. And Yeah, it's I just don't see when I would use it. The higher level version, I am going a little bit off the top of my head, but I think what it does is if you pass the test, reduces the enemy's fight to 0, so it guarantees a hit.
Mhm.
And I think you draw a card too. It's 3 or 4 XP. Still though, it has that issue of just devoting space in your deck to just making a hit, whether it's your own or an ally's, more likely to hit, not more damage or anything.
Yeah.
Not worth it. I think the one thing I can say for it is it works on elite enemies. A lot of
Yeah.
cards don't, but
Yeah.
you know, what good is making one hit on the Ghoul Priest more likely when you still need to hit it 4 other times?
Exactly. To defeat an elite enemy, like the ultimate solution is you just need to boost your stats up a lot. Generally.
Yes.
So,
Yeah. And do more damage per hit.
Yeah.
And this doesn't help with that. All right. So, Charles Ross. I'm actually kind of over this card for a completely different reason than most of these cards. He's a 2-cost ally, an asset that takes up the ally slot, I should say. And you may spend resources to play for, excuse me, you may pen it. I can't talk. Pandemic's got me. You may spend resources to pay for item assets played by other investigators at your location. And you can exhaust Charles Ross Esquire to reduce the cost of the next item asset played by an investigator at your location by 1. So this card, until I hear otherwise from like Matt Newman himself, I don't think that this card works as the designers thought it works.
Yeah.
Right? Because his exhaustibility stacks over time, but the game doesn't give you any way to track that. Players just have to invent, whether it's having a piece of paper and a pencil, or putting resource tokens on him, or what, that to stockpile that up. And it's just awkward and clunky, and when I play with this card, I feel like I'm breaking the game in kind of at least in a way that some people like breaking the game. I'm not one of those people, really. I like to kind of feel like I'm playing the game as intended and designed. That's why I'm a big proponent of the taboo list. So yeah, for that reason, I don't think I'm ever putting this in a deck again until maybe it gets mutated and kind of fixed to be in the taboo list.
So this is the one that I'm going to defend because while I don't know that Matt Newman or if this was old enough, it might have been Nate French, intended this to track the discount over time. I think that's actually the appropriate power level for this card. I think it would be a little bit underpowered if it only reduced by 1 this turn. I also don't think it's that hard to just track it by putting resources on the card. That's what I've always done. It gets a little bit weird if he gets killed because I think you still have the discount and you have to like track this like stack of resources where there's no card anymore. That's like the one case where it gets a little bit weird. But in general, I think just having the card out on the table with like 3 resources on it, it's like pretty obvious what that does. And I actually really like it in Joe because he plays a lot of items.
Yeah.
I think it makes at least as much money for Joe as Milan because Joe doesn't always do a traditional investigate like multiple times per turn. He often finds his clues via events. He also often does some fighting on his turn. And he really needs the sanity soak. So I think having a cheap, like, it's going to pay for itself and probably more and give him some sanity soak. So I personally would not retire this card.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't disagree with most of the things you said. It's just, yeah, I just don't like feeling like the game I'm playing is broken, and he makes me feel that way. So, I don't know, maybe agree to disagree on that one. All right. Oh man, I just did like a double take as I have thought about this card so little that it was in the stack that I made for us to talk about, and I was like, what is that? It's the level 0 cost seeker event guidance. It's an insight, and it says choose another investigator at your location who has yet to take his or her turn this round. That investigator may take an additional action during his or her turn this round. So I've got 2 big beefs with this card. One, it provides no efficiency or really built-in advantage whatsoever, right? Yep. It's costing you your action, it's costing you a card, and it's just giving your group of investigators 1 action. So you're actually down like 2 kind of units of actions because you're spending a card on it to get 1 back. Obviously, there are times when the right person having an extra action will make all the difference. But
maybe it's a Intrepid combo turn.
Fair. Yeah, you're right. Guidance and Intrepid, two cards that I plan to never play again, do go great together.
Yes, exactly. Two wrongs often make a right. That is the lesson you should take away from this video.
Um, can't argue with that. My other problem is the timing issue. I mentioned that niche timing is a big deal, and this is guilty of that too. For one thing, it's multiplayer only, right? Which is that's not timing. That's kind of I digress on that, but it has to be an investigator who has not taken their turn yet this round, which means you have to go first. And really, as the Seeker player, assuming you're playing this for a Seeker, you usually don't want to go first. You usually want to let the people who are going to be killing or evading the monsters so that you can get to those clues go first.
That is a fair point.
Right?
Typically, the fighter goes before the clover.
Yeah, and so the situation where, like, you want to give that fighter an extra action so they can finish off that monster, but you don't need them to go, like, if you go to their location and that enemy is massive or not engaged with something, you're going to get attacked.
Yeah.
Just playing guidance.
Yeah.
It's just, it
even has to be at your location.
Yep.
That's right. Like, they don't need to include at your location.
Yeah. Yeah, I would be a little more interested if it was an investigator anywhere. I would be significantly more interested if it was fast.
Yeah.
But it is not. No, I just don't see it.
It does kind of remind me of the Charlie meme from It's Always Sunny, though, where he's got the, like, graph on the wall, and he's like, this connects to this, connects to this, so...
The art is fun. All the red like yarn connecting all the dots on the board. I just wish the art was put on a better card.
Yeah.
All right. Unearth the Ancients is another one from the Forgotten Age. It's a 1-cost Seeker event. It does have 2 intellect icons, I'll give it that. It's an insight. It says, investigate. Choose a Seeker asset in your hand. The difficulty of the skill test is equal to the chosen asset's printed cost. If you succeed, instead of discovering clues, put the chosen asset into play. If that asset has the relic trait, draw a card. I feel like people were pretty high on this when it came out alongside Ursula.
I think everyone's first Ursula build just, like, threw all the relic cards in, because you're like, oh, she's the relic girl. And then you realize, like, actually just playing good Seeker cards is way better.
Here's the other thing. There's not that many Seeker relics. A lot of what's cool about Ursula is that she can play relics no matter what class they are. This only works on Seeker cards. So right there, this only works on a subset of the relics you're throwing in Ursula, even if you are trying to go relic crazy. Although the relic part of this is just a writer that you draw a card. So it works on any Seeker asset. That said, in preparation for this, I looked up, like, I could think of very few Seeker assets that cost enough to make this worthwhile. Turns out I would consider this maybe being worth considering for assets that cost 4 or more, right? Because then you're saving 3. That's like the equivalent of an emergency cash, or a little better than emergency cash there, but you're jumping through more hoops to do it. There are 3 Seeker assets that cost 4 or more. They're like Milan Christopher, Fingerprint Kit, and Nicotic Manuscripts, I believe. Only Nicotic Manuscript is a relic. So there's only 1 card in the game that both is expensive enough to make this interesting and is a relic, and that's a level 5 card.
Yeah, no one gets that card before, like, scenario 7, whereas you would have this in scenario
Presumably
1.
in your level 0 deck, yeah. So this is one to maybe revisit when twice as many cards are out and there are 6 things that it's good on instead of 3.
Yeah, unfortunately, though, you are going to have to burn these cards, so you will not be able to revisit it.
Oh, is that what we're doing?
Yes.
We're having an effigy, like, out back afterwards? And
yeah, no, I think, vote on Twitter which old one you want us to sacrifice these cards to, but, we'll do one of them.
Twitter.com/optimal_play. I'm trying to remember if the underscore is there. Names on social media are hard.
You can use Instagram, too, whatever.
We'll post a poll. Which great old one should devour the bad cards? All right, so no, you're not putting up a fight for Unearth the Ancients?
No. The Ancients can stay under the earth.
Okay. Well, so we are going to do 2 videos about this during this QuarantineCon, but I thought it would be fun to sneak neutrals in the middle where no one expects it. So what I'm sure it will be the least controversial retirement of this list. Lola Hayes, the actress. Yeah, so she is the only neutral investigator. Cool in that right, I guess. She has 3 of every stat. She's a performer. She says, forced, after you draw your opening hand, choose a role. It's one of the 5 classes or neutral. You can only play, commit, or trigger abilities on neutral cards. Excuse me. Play, commit, or trigger abilities on neutral cards or cards of your role. Once per round, you can switch her role for free, or when you draw an Elder Sign. And then her deck has to be built with at least 7 cards from each of 3 classes. Mm-hmm. So she has to be this wild multi-class hybrid. The gameplay of... So to get the full story, we have to look at her weakness.
Yeah.
Right? Her weakness is Crisis of Identity. There are 2 copies of it in her deck. And it's a madness that says, Revelation, discard all cards you control of your current role. Then discard the top card of your deck. Switch your role to the class of the discarded card. If it's a weakness, switch your role to neutral. So anytime that you have built up a tableau of cards, say you're doing a great job of getting some clues because you've got a fingerprint kit and a magnifying glass in play, if you want to be in your seeker role to actually utilize those cards, you are risking them all getting discarded from play at any time. And there's 2 copies in your deck. So it's like, it's not, signature weaknesses, you can kind of think of them as, well, if I don't draw through my deck, it's like maybe half the time I'll draw it. But she's definitely going to see it. Between that and then the fact that she's just not good, she's fine at everything with 3s across the board, but she's not good at anything, right? She just doesn't have a place in my book.
So the argument could be made that the problem is not with Lola Hayes, but with every other investigator. Which is that...
I did not see that coming. All right, go on.
Whenever there's like a sweet combo
you had to say that when I was drinking and almost did a spit take. It's not good for QuarantineCon.
Oh, but it is good television. So whenever there's a sweet combo between 2 different faction cards, you could almost always find an investigator other than Lola Hayes that can pull off that combo. So there's not like some incredible combo that you have to play Lola for. For example, being able to play Ace in the Hole for 3 extra actions and Will to Survive to not reveal chaos tokens is an awesome combo.
Sure.
There's already an investigator that can do that other than Lola. It's Rita Hayes.
Yeah.
So I really can't think of any like game-breaking combos that you have to play a neutral investigator for.
So the problem with Lola is that the other investigators like cover the bases too well.
Yeah, like I think if they wanted to make being neutral a big advantage, they should have made the other investigators more limited in their deck building.
Yeah.
Given that we have so many types of deck building, there's not really a need for a neutral investigator because most of those broken combos you can already do in other investigators.
Yeah, that's a good way of looking at it. Is just the fantasy, the promise that Lola has is that like, oh man, I can throw these 3 different classes together and do all these cool things. But you're right, there's someone else who can do each of those cool things and has an ability that isn't just you can only use 1/3 of your cards each
Exactly.
round.
You'd rather be playing Rita than Lola. You know, like assuming that they both have a sweet combo.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, in a way, so neutral cards in general like should be weaker than class cards because anyone can take them. Yeah. So in a way, it's like the correct design that the neutral investigator is the weakest. That doesn't quite apply in the same way.
Yeah, no, it doesn't.
It's not like you're putting her into other decks. So, I don't know. I would be really interested to see another take on a neutral investigator someday. I don't know what that would look like. I'm sure that there have been lots of custom ones designed.
You know, Netrunner did a pretty good job with the like mini factions, so maybe we'll have like mini factions for Arkham.
That would be interesting. Yeah. I'd be up for that. But no, I changed my mind. I don't like it. In this game where the investigators have signature cards, like a small faction, which is basically cards that pretty much only that investigator can play, it's not that different from an investigator that just has like a decent quantity of signature cards, right? Kind of.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, that's okay. Not all your ideas are winners. I do have a couple other neutral cards to talk about. Obviously, like I was just saying, it's okay for neutral cards to be a little weaker because their flexibility is their benefit. But Kukri is just too bad to go into any more decks. It's a 2-cost asset. It's an item, a weapon, and it's a melee, and it takes up a hand slot. Level 0, I don't think I said. As an action you can fight, you get +1 combat for this attack. If you succeed, you may spend 1 additional action to deal +1 damage for this attack. So it's basically a worse Blackjack because it can hit your allies.
Well, no, because it reads like you punch someone for +1, and then your next punch is automatically succeeds. So that's a little better than Blackjack.
Yeah, but if you hit on one, you're like probably gonna hit on the next one, right? You're not taking, like, if you're getting 1 damage from an attack, you're not taking some big gamble that's like, I'm throwing everything into this. I'm definitely gonna pass because it's gonna do all this damage. This is just like, oh, I've got an extra action. Like, I guess I'll do an attack. That enemy doesn't have retaliate. I'll see if I can get that damage in. So the fact that yes, it can essentially give you an auto succeed on a second 1 damage attack. No, you don't want to spend 2/3 of your turn doing 1 damage each.
No, I mean, I'm not actually playing this.
No, but cool card. I actually like the flavor of it, which I envision to be at least like you land this blade into the enemy, and then you like kind of like get your bearings, and then just like drive the knife in, right?
Yeah.
I do love the flavor. I love nothing else.
In general, or about that card?
I live a dark existence. It's pretty much the flavor of Kukri is the only thing that brings light.
Okay.
I don't really, kind of on the flip side, I like what this does. Don't like the flavor. Power level's just too low. The red gloved man. He was never there. It is a 2-cost level 5 neutral asset. He's an ally, takes up an ally slot. Is fast. I didn't even read the trait. He's a conspirator for what that's worth.
Super relevant.
Maybe when we get that conspirator support someday, he'll be back. But as a reaction after the red gloved man enters play, choose 2 of your skills. While the red gloved man is in play, raise the base value of each of those skills to 6. He has 4 health and 4 sanity soak, but then at the end of the mythos phase, discard the red gloved man. So he does not stick around for long. For one thing, I actually think that this is like theoretically a cool character, but the art, there's no flavor text. The art doesn't really give us much. Like, maybe that's the idea, is that he's so mysterious you don't understand what this card is saying he is even. But anyway, that's the complaint I was getting at with the flavor. I think that this card was kind of exciting when it came out, and just is not how you would spend 5 XP anymore.
Yeah, I mean, 5 is rough. This is the one I would defend the most because I do think there's an argument for him in Yorick, where you can replay him frequently, especially if you're like sometimes using police badge to get more than 3 actions. You can kill an enemy on your first action, bring in red gloved man. He sets your intellect to 6, so then you like get 2 clues, and you also have some soak during the mythos phase. That's not the worst thing in the world.
Yeah, I'm definitely not saying he's the worst thing in the world, but for 5 XP, and he's just setting those skills to 6. It's not like you're getting extra clues or damage from that. And then he's taking up your ally slot, which means you've got to either play only him, God forbid, or sacrifice your previous ally, kind of leading up to playing him, and just the timing around getting him into play at a time when all the stars will align and all the facets of this card are useful before he goes away. Like, it's just too... It's just one of those cards that you evaluate based on best case scenario, and that scenario is never going to happen.
I mean, while I agree that 5 XP is high, it's not like there's another 5 XP card York's buying, so... he can probably afford it.
Well, and there is, we just talked last week about a new 5 XP neutral ally, the Black Cat, that we played 1 game together. After that, I used the Black Cat. Holy shit, that card was an all-star. That card was great. It canceled so many bad stuff tokens, healed itself several times, soaked some extra stuff for me. I think I would put the Black Cat in my deck over the Red Glove Man like 100 out of 100 times.
So what color do you think the next 5 XP neutral ally will be? So we've had red and then black. Do you think we're going to go blue? Green?
Maybe like the Yellow King, and you can summon He Who Shall Not Be Named as an ally.
Do you take a horror just for playing that?
I think you like take 100 horror, but cannot go insane as long as season play or something like
okay.
that.
Yeah. Okay, that's pretty cool.
All right, get on that. Okay, so that's the first half of pretty much, I guess, the worst cards in the game, according to me. It seems like you more or less thought it was on the right track.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there were some that were worth defending. You know, I would not keep all of them from the sacrifice for sure. Certainly, old ones are hungry and they do need to eat, you know, bad cards
Regularly, yeah.
Regularly. I do know. Do you play Slay the Spire?
Yeah, I've played some of it.
Sometimes there's a prompt that comes up where you can sacrifice a card, and if you sacrifice a really bad card, they'll be like, "Oh, that sucks. I'm not giving you anything."
So, really?
Yes, there
I
is.
have not seen that happen. That's
So
hilarious.
do keep that in mind that like the old ones may not be impressed by these
They
cards.
may not bless me for these cards, for these sacrifices.
So you know, you may want to also like throw in like a Dr. Milan or a Machete or a Mr. Rook, just to make sure that you survive the end times.
Oh man, that would be a sacrifice. All right, I'll think about it. All right, well, with that, we'll let you get back to quarantining. You know, play some solo or with family members Arkham, or Arkham Online with us or anyone else who's down as part of QuarantineCon. We'll be back, I think. The plan, if you're watching this when it came out, it was probably Tuesday of QuarantineCon week, and I think maybe the next part of this will be out Friday-ish. And we're also talking about playing one of the first scenarios of Dream Eaters together, and that might make it up too. So keep an eye out for that, and we'll see you next time. Thank you for joining me, Steven, and be optimal.